He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
I did it, ladies and gentlemen. I actually brought a Hawaiian shirt to Hawaiian Shirt Friday on the Alex Marlow Show. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a lot of news to get through, and it's chilly in a lot of the world. I was just talking to Nolte out in North Carolina. He says 15 degrees. It's hockey season, too. The great state of Canada, beating us in the overtime in the big hockey match. Trudeau made this really whimpering statement after we beat him in the saying you can't take our country. After the great state of Canada beat us in overtime, you can't take our country. You can't take our game. What a sad sack. It's so funny how it's extreme beta energy. Does he not provide the most extreme beta energy of any of the global leaders? And it's hard to even call him a global leader anymore since he is truly the leader of the state of Canada. I think it'll be two states, though. But let's hear from President Trump. Let's see what he has to say.
They get 95% of their product from the United States. I think they have to become the 51st state. And you heard the people booing the national anthem, but I think ultimately they'll be praising the national anthem. We'll have to work out some deal with it, because I do like the "O Canada," right? It's a beautiful thing. I think we're going to have to keep it for the 51st state. I call him Governor Trudeau. I said, Governor Trudeau's doing a wonderful job. I think it's actually cost him his election, if you want to know the truth. But we're gonna see about that. We're looking at Greenland, and we have to take back the Panama Canal, because that wasn't the deal. We gave the Panama Canal to Panama. It was the most expensive thing ever built in our country. It would be the equivalent of $2 trillion today. We spent.
All right, it's good stuff. We definitely need two more states from Canada, but we got to leave the libs up there. So that's where it's going to get complicated. But look, it's cold some parts of the world. It's Hawaiian Shirt Friday here on the Alex Marlow Show. Let me start with a preview of something coming up over the weekend that I want to recommend to all of you at Breitbart News. We have got German elections, and we have the best European coverage of anywhere in conservative new media for sure, and some of the best coverage, I think, period, in American media. We've had a London bureau for over a decade. We have a Rome bureau. So we have a lot of people in proximity to cover things that are going on in Europe. And so we're keeping an eye on this election. It's on Sunday. Let me give you some of the details. This is straight from Oliver Lane, our London bureau chief. So on Sunday, so this is a snap election, so an early election, because the government, which is currently a left-wing coalition, collapsed last year, mostly because of Trump. It was sort of Trump's first victory. It was really on Trump's election day. So it's partially because Trump won. So here are the parties. So there's this party called the CDU, which is Angela Merkel's party. It's a party. It's a soft conservative party. SPD, soft left social democrats. They're the current leaders of the government. The AFD. So this is the sovereigntist populist. This is the sort of center-right populist group that is very controversial according to the press, but is probably the best option of what's up there. They've got the Green Party. They've got the FDP, which are sort of corporatist liberals, and the BSW, which is left-wing sovereigntists. So we've got two populist parties that are there, and the polls show that the CDU, which is the soft right conservatives, are going to be the biggest. But the next thing is that the AFD is likely to come in second, and will have a huge role in the government. Because remember, it's a parliamentary system, got all these parties, and so neither party is going to get a majority or anything close to that. So they're going to have to build a coalition. So likely you're going to get a coalition of the CDU and the AFD to rule Germany, and it's going to be ruling it from the right. So it could be the most conservative German government we've seen in a very long time. So they try to tar the AFD with Hitler a lot. So that's sort of the main thing that the press is going to freak out about. They're going to act like Hitler is coming back into power, but that's not what it is. And I think we'll see that as it plays out over time. But it definitely makes it feel as though Europe could be getting more conservative the same way Latin America is getting more conservative. And so that's kind of the top of mind for us at Breitbart. But it's not a guarantee. So the AFD it'll be interesting, because we're looking at perhaps a bad outcome if the CDU, which is that soft right conservative party, ends up building a coalition with the sort of centrist social democrats. So that's another idea that could be bad if the coalition that they build is not catering towards the right-wing populists, but more towards some of those other left-wing governments, which would be a really bad outcome. This is pretty much what Angela Merkel did during the last decade, and that led to the massive migrant crisis. It really led to a lot of the deterioration of Europe in general, I think, is from that exact sort of coalition, which is what we could see again. So best case scenario, you're getting a center-right party aligned with the AfD, and worst case scenario, you're getting a center-right party aligned with a lot of the left-wing coalitions. And so we could see a massive shift towards an anti-mass migration populist leadership there, or we could see more of the same old, the corporatist, globalist BS that I think has really hurt Europe quite a bit. So it's very high stakes. We don't know how it's going to work out. And after the election, we don't know what exactly the coalition is going to be built. But a lot of polling is suggesting a dip in support for the CDU, but a boost to the left, which is interesting, especially Vance was over there making that speech. We're going to see how that plays out. Probably too soon to tell if he made a difference, appealing to the populist wings to show up and vote in Europe. So hopefully some of the pollsters are getting it wrong, but we were looking like a right-wing lock a little while ago, and now it's looking like it's much more on the edge. So we're tracking that at Breitbart News over the weekend. Everyone should check that out, those of you, particularly those of you with a keen eye on international affairs. Vance was vindicated when a 74-year-old woman was charged after a silent vigil outside an abortion clinic in Scotland. So he made that speech right in the globalist faces, talking about how their biggest threat is from within, threats to free speech, threats to any sort of democracy, essentially, where they have more of totalitarian leftism running most of Europe at this time. There's some notable exceptions. I mean, you're looking at Hungary, you're looking at Poland, you're looking at Italy as places where we're moving in the right direction, but still overwhelmingly left-wing socialists with an authoritarian streak of running that continent. And one of the examples is Scotland, for sure. And now a 74-year-old woman holding vigil outside of an abortion clinic has been charged silently praying, but not allowed because of Scotland's Abortion Services Safe Access Zones Act. So Vance was so right. He's very good. He knows what to talk about. I will update another horrible story at the outset. I mentioned some of the handoff of the 4 dead hostages yesterday by Hamas with the all black clad terrorists that look like they're ready for battle. A lot of cheering going on, black coffins. The coffins were sealed without a lock to be able to get into them. So more performance art. This was done in front of a poster of Netanyahu depicted as a bloodthirsty vampire. Really appalling stuff, and shows you how nasty Hamas and much of the Gazans are. And now we learned that one of the alleged hostages was not real. It was just a random corpse, apparently, and it was not the corpse of one of the 4 hostages. Of course, 2 of the other hostages were small children, a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old, the Bibis family. And now we know that one of the 4 hostages was not real. It was a lie. And this is how you erode trust, and it's exactly the type of stuff why so many of us, even those of us who think we're in way too many wars and think that doesn't want American blood spilled overseas, still thinks that we're rooting for Israel to take out Hamas and for Trump to come in there and build Gaza-Lago. That's why we want it. This area is, if these people are put in charge of any territory, rebuilt or not rebuilt, they're going to ruin it. They're going to make the world a worse place. These are some of the ideological monsters, and sending the wrong body. The mom of the Bibis babies, or not among the 4 corpses, despite claims that she was. So sick stuff, sick people, and need to be defeated at all costs. All right. Let's see. So, all right. So let's get into some positive stuff. Trump has ordered agencies to stop taxpayer funding for illegal migrants. Very good news. Ordering agencies to scrub their regulations and spending programs, according to Neil Monroe of Breitbart, to ensure illegal migrants are not getting taxpayer funds via hidden channels. So this is big. It's obvious, but it's big. If you're getting the federal funding is going to illegal alien services, then you don't get any more funding. This is how you do the self-deportations, the backdoor deportations, which are much more palatable at a humane level, which is you disincentivize illegal aliens from being here because they're not able to get as many services. because we do treat people generally humanely in this country. We don't like rounding people up in paddy wagons. We understand that there are circumstances that brought people here that aren't necessarily evil. They are in violation of our laws, but we're not trying to treat everyone as if they're evil. And so it is a much better way to just simply disincentivize not only mass migration, but disincentivize staying here. That if you stay here, you're not going to have access to Americans' largesse funded by taxpayers who are citizens and have roots down and who are in the system. We can't allow for that anymore. And not only does that restore law and order, restore basic fundamental principles of national sovereignty, but also is a huge discouragement for people staying and trying to leech off the system if it becomes more difficult to do so each and every year. So very good stuff. And Doge continues to be on the march, identifying waste as well as other elements of these new Trump these cabinet secretaries, these new agencies, the way they're running things. The Department of Education has removed 2,300 pages pushing woke propaganda from the Biden administration. So this is an exclusive that we had at Breitbart News from the Department of Education. Good stuff from Catherine Hamilton at Breitbart over there. 2,300 pages related to DEI, pro-LGBTQIA+. They didn't include the Two-Spirit in this, or the Four-Spirit, or the furries, or the pregnant man emojis. No pregnant man emojis. Interesting. But anyway, all this woke stuff is going away. 2,300 pages. All this stuff is just unbelievable. Just talking about, we're so obsessed with how schools can support intersex students. It's just these are incredibly rare scenarios when you're an intersex person, and we don't need all this effort being put forth in this regard. So how U.S. Department of Education supporting LGBTQI plus youth and family. They can't even keep the letters and numbers straight. All right, I don't bring you products that I wouldn't use myself, and I can tell you wholeheartedly that I've been using and recommend the Juvent Micro Impact platform. I've talked about how we're stuck in traffic too much, we're too sedentary, we have the scoliosis on our phones. Well, this is a remedy for that. What Juvent does is it provides micro impacts that stimulate bone health. It helps you with joint pain, stiff muscles, weakened bones. It helps with recovery. It helps with strength. This is a great way to stay healthy without trying to force yourself to walk 100,000 steps a day or whatever, which you're not doing anyway. And it is really, really solid science. I ran it by the doctors in my life. They said it's legit and good for huge groups of people, from seasoned citizens, as Rush Limbaugh would call it, to recovering athletes. It is a really good way to stay healthy from the comfort of your own home. Really easy to do. My routine, I pick up Master Marlow Jr. from school, hop on my Juvent platform for 20 minutes. You could do 10. You could do a shorter amount of time if you want. And I catch up on the news. I talk to my staff. I lead a conference call. I get filled in on the stuff that I need to know for work while I'm making myself healthier. It is a great new approach to keeping yourself at your very best for the year 2025. Built to last, 10-year limited warranty, financing options. You can use FSA funds. It's got a calibrator on it, so it works for the whole family. One size fits all. And if you're not loving it after 6 weeks, Juvent will buy the platform back from you. So you don't even have to take my word for it. You can literally just try it. Go to juvent.com. That's JUVENT.com/Marlow and use the code Marlow at checkout for $500 off. That's Juvent, JUVENT.com/Marlow. $500 off at checkout with the code Marlow. Check it out for yourself. So it's all fostering this environment where people start questioning whether or not they're trans, and any sort of mental health, developmental issue, growing pains that they might be going through, phases of life that young people go through. It's all coaching them up to think, well, maybe I'm a trans person. And that's why it's become a social contagion, and we need to not encourage it. We can't encourage it. I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of a couple examples out of the 380 million people here that might be beyond my comprehension as a regular cis hetero white male. But I'm saying that it's not the percentages that we've seen now. It's just not. And clearly we are grooming people, and our government is doing. Our government has to stop. If you want to have a government-run education system, you can't have all this nonsense. If you want to make the case that families should be free to govern themselves, fine. But we're leading all these people with our government to a path towards chemical castration, towards irreversible hormone replacement surgery, creating all this damage to their bodies. And not only that, confusion to the family. And that's the thing that hurts me the most, is undermining the family, making it very uncomfortable just to talk to your own children, because they go to school and they go into an environment where they're being groomed by our government, and that has to stop. The Doge pointed out, I think this was last week, the Department of Education terminated 89 contracts worth $881 million. One contractor was paid $1.5 million to observe mailing and clerical operations at a mail center. So it's people who are observing observations. So that's like you get the observers of the observers. So I just don't get why these are so expensive, these contracts. And continuing to make Democrats feel like they have to be put in a position to defend all this stuff is what's going to, I think, make sure that we're able to move forward and to just see them all melt down, because they can't really defend all that amount of money that is going to, the Trans Elmo Sesame Streets in Guatemala. Like, right? I mean, we just keep making them defend that. I was noticing this. I was thinking about the state of play here with Democrats, who I do think are starting to find a little bit of better messaging, a little bit better footing. But then I'm reminded that really there's only one new star on the Democrat left so far. We featured her on the show a little bit, but I should probably feature some more. But reflecting on this, is the Democrats have no choice if they want to. I don't want to say no choice. They have two choices. They can either just run harder to the left, which seems to be in direct contrast to the woke moment that we're in, or they can try to find someone who's more reasonable, who can work with Trump and maybe point out ways that Trump could do a better job at the things Trump is trying to do, and just to kind of try to nip around the edges and find a little bit of daylight between Trump's successes and maybe where he could have done maybe even a little bit better. No, what they're doing is they're acting like everything Trump does is evil and wrong. And let me show you how that sounds. This is Jasmine Crockett. This is the one new star of the Democrat left right now. Here she is. Check this out.
Now, President Trump says he likes the idea of giving some of the savings from Doge back to Americans as kind of a dividend. Would you support that?
Listen, he's just telling a lie. He's not the one that had anything to do with the $1,200 refunds that people had during the midst of COVID that was done by a Democratic House and Democratic Senate. Right now, what they're going to do is say, hey, we want to give you a refund, but Congress won't let us, because they already know that there's just no money for that. The only reason that those refunds came before was because we were living in different times. This was a time in which hopefully we won't ever go through again.
So it's funny when you say nothing, but you say it like this, then it is convincing. So we are living in different times. It doesn't mean anything. So before we did all the COVID stuff because it was unprecedented, but then we kept doing the giveaways even when it was no longer necessary. So just the Biden's American Recovery Act, or whatever it was called, we were already recovering. We were recovering at a super fast rate under Trump. And then Biden came in and he came up with another $1 trillion plus in spending and called the recovery. We already recovered. We were on the road to recovery. It wasn't necessary. It was him trying to get his agenda through. So you can bet that if Jasmine Crockett had the chance to sponsor a climate bill for $100 trillion or whatever, and she thought there was a chance that it could actually get through the Congress, she wouldn't care about all the spending. She just doesn't want to spend in this way because it could actually lighten the burden on Americans, and Trump will get the credit.
Again, we had a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. The bad part is that I don't know if it's once in a lifetime, because we know that Ebola, unfortunately, was detected right here in New York here recently. And if we
got that, Ebola's coming. It's coming for us. Look, I'm all in on the Ebola headlines, but I don't think we're going to have an Ebola pandemic sometime soon. I will eat those words if I'm wrong.
And if we continue down this road of getting rid of scientists or deciding that we don't want to rely on experts as it relates to what they're telling us to do, or we don't want to deal with vaccines and medicine in this country, then we may be facing not only our next pandemic, but our next 2, 3, or 4 pandemics because of their incompetence. So no, we are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000.
Oh, boy, we missed the best part. Oh, man, was that my fault, Misty? Anyway, so she doesn't know what $5,000 is going to do for people. So that's the point I wanted to get to. I don't know what $5,000 will do for you. So let me tell you something. I'm not in the 1%, but I do okay. And I could use $5,000 right now. How about you guys? Like the average American income level is, what is it? 60, 70 grand? Like, is that it for a family? Like it's the... You guys couldn't use an extra $5K right now, tax free. Remember, it's 60 or 70 grand, whatever is the average income, and then the government takes a nip out of you. So it's the I don't know. I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know what $5,000 will do for you. What an outrage! What if you're someone who makes 36 grand a year, and you're hearing that, and you're talking about getting 15-20% boost, and you've been living on the edge for a long time because of the Biden inflation, because your wages at work have not gone up with inflation. And we're talking about Trump maybe saying with the Doge savings, we could give out $5,000. And she's saying she doesn't know what it will do for you. It is the arrogance of some of these people and the idiocy. That's why I'm so happy to have her. I was thinking about this. I mentioned this on Laura Ingram's show yesterday. I've never donated to a politician before, but I might donate to Jasmine Crockett. She might be the first. I mean, she's just here to make content for me, for conservatives, right? What other purpose is she serving the public right now? She's got no filter. It's all just content gold for me. And she's not going to stop. She's going to keep doing it. I'm kind of surprised we're just noticing this now because I look back at Breitbart. We've had Crockett coverage for years, but I never knew she was this great. I don't know what $5,000 is going to do for you. Like, it's just, wow. It's like, who couldn't use $5,000 right now? And especially if it comes out of all the woke DEI at the Department of Education. I mean, that's exactly where I want my $5,000 to come from, specifically that stuff. Or some sort of extra government contract for some sort of war we don't need to be fighting. That's where I would like to choose. I'm going to have a program where you choose where you get your $5,000 from when Trump does the $5,000 handouts. It is so tone deaf with where people are now. People are broke in this country. They got income for the most part. People are making some money. But it all goes. The cost of living is so high. Housing is so high. Food is so high. People need that to stay afloat. Extra $5,000 would come in really nice for most Americans saying, oh, we don't know what it would do for you. It would do a lot for a lot of people. So good. I hope she stays out there. I hope the Democrats take her on that 57-state tour. I'm still trying to figure it out. You guys have been trying to help me. I noticed I got a lot of comments on that online. Trying to figure out all 57 states. I'm counting D.C. I'm counting Puerto Rico. I'm counting Greenland. I'm counting Canada twice. So that's 55. So two great states of Canada, one great state of Greenland. I cannot figure out what the other 2 states are. So if you guys can help me out, what are the 57 states the Democrats are going to go to for their 57-state tour? I hope they bring Crockett, and I will absolutely try to sponsor something on her behalf, just for the content. I feel like I owe her. So this is what I'm saying. Democrats got whooped in the election. The woke moment's over. We sent that signal. And instead of trying to find someone reasonable to help them forge a new identity, work with Trump, reigning in government bloat, they have one new star, and she's like a parody of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't know if we deserve to be this lucky. We got more Crockett. Let's see. We got, I don't know what these are yet. Misty, I said, Misty, pull me some Crockett. We're doing some Crockett on today's show. It's Friday. It's a wine shirt Friday. We're having fun with Crockett. Let's see some more.
Been the one to call it out. The fact that I'm rooting for Canada and I'm rooting for Mexico a lot is really wild. But
I'm rooting for Canada and Mexico. She's a representative of the United States Congress, and she's rooting for foreign countries. And she's saying it out loud. This is my point. Why would you say this out loud? It's I admit, I sometimes, I don't always root for the team I'm supposed to root for. But I know better than when to say that I think I'm kind of rooting for the bad guys on this one. She's just admitting I'm rooting for the other countries, even though I'm a U.S. I serve the United States of America in the Congress.
Wild, but they are really the ones that are speaking truth to power right now. They can see what it is, and they were like, we are not messing with this crazy regime from Mar-a-Lago, and basically calling them thugs. That's what it is. But I'm like, y'all knew who he was when y'all elected him. So don't act.
Why does she act like Mar-a-Lago is a swear word? It's just a beautiful historic building. It's funny. It's just a little club. I mean, it's not imposing. It's really nice in there. A lot of gold. It's very well. A lot of art on the walls. It predates Trump by, I don't know, a century, whatever. It goes from Mar-a-Lago from ocean to sea. What does that mean? Something like that. Lake to sea. It's I think the only property in Palm Beach that touches both bodies of water that border it. So it's very cool. Just it's not a big place. It's a nice place. Like it's not some sort of. She acts like it's some sort of some sort of hidden place where all these people go in trench coats and tunics and do satanic rituals, and it's just like people hang out. Like you eat stone crab there. You listen to YMCA. It's not that bad of a place. People have a lot of fun over at Mar-a-Lago. All right, I got some more.
My takeaway is just like the election. We've got to do better at education. People don't understand, but you will understand when those hospitals in rural America start closing down even more. You will understand when you don't have your Social Security. You will understand when your Medicaid, your Medicare goes away. You will understand as planes continue to fall out of the sky. Soon you will understand why it's important to maybe have somebody that isn't loud and ridiculous, and maybe Sleepy Joe is what we wanted because we could at least sleep at night.
Yeah, while the regime in Mar-a-Lago does an animal sacrifice, it may be a human sacrifice. They be sacrificing everyone. Like, there's no Medicare or Medicaid going away. They're not cutting Social Security. Trump's a smart politician. He knows if he does that, he's political death. So he's not going to do that. He wants to have a lasting legacy. And so he doesn't want to pass over his administration to the next generation of Democrats. He wants it to go to a nice long lineage of conservative Trumpian Republicans. So he's not cutting Medicare and Medicaid. He said that specifically many times, and then the audience just applauds like seals. So embarrassing. So this messaging is all over the place. They can't decide what's going on. They say Trump is a dictator, but he actually isn't president at all because of Musk. And Musk doesn't really have any authority, according to AOC. And Musk wasn't elected, and we hate that. And you shouldn't fire everyone in the deep state, even though none of them were elected. So we had unelected Musk fire who we hate, firing the unelected people in the deep state. That's wrong, because we love those unelected people. And we love them. They're the best. And Musk isn't even smart, according to AOC, even though he catches rocket ships and snatches them out of the sky with Connects. How many of you know that reference? Connects. Looks like Connects. It's an old-timey toy that I think I played with once growing up. All right, but he's not smart also. All right, Musk was at CPAC. Let's see what he was up to.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
Chainsaw for bureaucracy. He's on the stage at CPAC. He's got a chainsaw that Javier Milei had given him. He's holding up in the air. He's swinging around. All right, let's see where this goes. He made it into sort of like a penis. Okay, it's very Muskian.
All right.
I love it. Mr. President, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you. I love it. We love it. We love it.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun performance art. The left used to do this stuff much better than we did. We're having fun and we're taking chainsaw to bureaucracy. It's fun. How could you deny it? Try to argue that's not fun. All right. I want to contrast this with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
So that he can enrich himself. He is trying to steal. He is trying to steal and gut NASA to line his pockets with SpaceX. He is trying to gut everything that is good in America for his own private profit.
Is this the only rhetoric trick the left knows now? Is to talk like this. They are all doing it. They're not saying anything, but they talk staccato. Like, is that really that persuasive to people? Is that, I don't know. I used to think they were better, the rhetoric. Cutting all that's good. So that is, I guess, all of those, circumcisions in Mozambique and the trans Sesame Street overseas, and that's all that's good in America. I don't know. Is that what we accept all that, all the woke stuff and the Department of Education? I don't think so. I don't think that's all that's good about America. Firing all these woke generals are going to firing all the J6 prosecutors who are going to fire. Like, it's great. It's great to fire those people. That's not all that's good in America. It's not a message that's going to resonate. And also suggesting that Musk is just doing it for profit. I mean, he has enough profit. He's made enough money. I'm sure he wants to do well with his businesses, and we're going to be on the lookout for America's China policy, because so long as Musk is in the room, then I'm afraid of that we won't be tough enough on China because he relies on China for so many of his businesses. But overall, it looks like he's actually trying to help. And maybe you don't like the way he's trying to help, so make that message. But that's not really the message there. So this goes back to the Jasmine Crockett point, where she says $5,000 is not going to do much for you. That's not a good argument. A good argument would be, if we save the money, we should really pay down our national debt. Our national debt is spiraling out of control, and we really should take that money and start paying off the credit card. That's an argument. I don't know if I support it. I might support just giving the money back to the American people. I think it solidifies a lot of political gains. I think it helps a lot of people live their life. I think it'll lift America's spirit. I think it'll boost the economy. So I'm kind of inclined to do what Trump, I think, wants to do, which is give it to the people. But I understand the argument. Let's just pay it all off on the debt. Let's pay off the debt with it. That'll help us. That's an argument. 5,000 won't do much for you is not an argument. So Musk just, all he's doing is for profit. He did a great job making profit under Joe Biden also. So he tends to figure it out. Maybe that's not his motivation. Maybe he's motivated by other stuff.
Is the culmination of what oligarchy is all about and what oligarchy seeks to do. It's the fusion of and the capture by the billionaire class of our democracy. That's what they're trying to do. But it's very important to understand that it is not sustainable. They may seem like they have power right now, but all of this dramatic action is trying to create the sense of inevitability, the sense of power, so that we abdicate in advance.
Yeah. So her point is, it's not really that Musk has any power. He doesn't have power, even though he's also the president. See how incoherent it is? They can't keep up with it. But, they're going to find some footing eventually. And we're starting to see a little bit of successful pushback as they have found that, I guess, Trump had fired some park rangers that probably shouldn't have been fired at Yosemite National Park. Where am I reading from? This is Washington Post. California's Yosemite National Park, the Trump administration fired the only locksmith on staff on Friday. He was a sole employee with the keys and the institutional knowledge needed to rescue visitors from locked restrooms. Okay, so they locked them up and they were in the restroom. What were they doing in the restroom when it got locked? You can just say, "Hey, don't lock it yet. I'm in here." What are they doing in there? I'm guessing that the visitors weren't doing anything that any of you would be doing in the restroom. And just hanging out. But anyway, that sort of stuff, you don't want to fire all the park rangers. So I love the idea that they're erring on the side, the Doge and the Trump crowd, of we're going to fire everyone and we'll hire back the people who are necessary. But trying not to be sloppy about it would probably be helpful, because it keeps that stuff out of the headlines, which matters much less than it used to. And those of you who are interested in such things, my Breitbart Fight Club interview today is, which I recommend to all of you, is with John Nolte, and we break down how the media has been reacting to Trump and how ineffective they've been. So a lot of interesting analysis from him. I think he's the best in the game at that. But it's trying not to give them too much of easy layup headlines. So the sob stories from the fired federal workers are going to work on some people. They're not going to work on us necessarily, because people who work in the private sector are always in fear that you could lose your job. And you don't always lose your job because you're not good at it. And you don't always lose your job because of something that when you made a mistake. Sometimes you lose your job because the economic climate changes, the economics of your business changes. Other realities, layoffs happen, furloughs happen, things happen just that are not because you're a bad person or anyone who fires you dislikes you. So a lot of these things happen just simply because the market changes and what is desirable changes. I'm in the news business. Thankfully, we do well, but there are certain areas of our business that do better at sometimes than others. It is things change. The value of a certain thing that is one of your products might change, and if the value of that product changes, then you're not necessarily going to keep the division the same size. So if a value goes up, you might want to add to that division. But if the value of a certain product goes down, then you might cut from that division. Doesn't mean the people who were doing the work there weren't doing a good job. So that's the reality of normal American life for people who weren't in the federal government. The federal government was just seen as a plan where you get a job for life. So that's not the case. So the sob stories, though, will work a little bit. So that's why we need to make sure the people who are actually doing the firings are smart and they're on Trump's team. So whoever physically was the one who said, hey, the only guy who's got the key to the Yosemite bathroom, you're fired. Who's that guy? That's who I want to figure out. Who really gave the order to fire that person? Because that seems dumb to me. And I would like to make sure that person is not there anymore. That's the person to fire, because that person is either a saboteur or just stupid. So that's what we got to keep an eye out on. And it's tough to do. They're moving fast. And so I'm being very charitable in terms of giving them time. But we should keep an eye out on that. Let's see. Yeah, so U.S. consumer sentiment is plunged over tariff and inflation fears, according to CNN. I ran this by John Carney at Breitbart to see what he thinks, and he thinks it's bad. The consumer sentiment is down, and this could hurt Trump, but it's mostly being dragged down by Democrats, he says. So because the people who consume their news, not from here, not from Breitbart, they're getting told that tariffs are going to cause inflation, and not only Democrats, but independents are going to get wrapped up into that. So Republican sentiment is actually up. So we're getting more confident the more Trump does what he's going to do. But the media is not totally irrelevant. And so they're out there and they are making the claim that we're all headed for ruin here. And not to mention, there's probably a lot more of these fired employees are probably Democrats. That is going to drag stuff down. So we keep an eye on that. And the Democrats will do better than they're doing now. They're at a very low point. The messaging will get better, I promise that. But sometimes they go backwards. The ABC News, among the hardest hit when devastating fires tore through Los Angeles in January were transgender and non-binary residents in transitional housing programs. Can you imagine if your house burned down that was worth millions of dollars you invested in, that you spent your whole life in, or your kid's school burned down, or your parts of your community are going to be ruined for years? You got small kids and they grew up in a neighborhood and you love that neighborhood. Now you can't go back to the neighborhood. That's what happened to so many families. And the ABC says that the trans and the non-binaries were the hardest hit. They weren't hit equally. They were hit harder. Why? So they can do this stuff. And I think the first comment here on this tweet is from Molly Hemingway from The Federalist. You are beyond parody. Yeah, exactly. It sums it up. It's just beyond parody. It's beyond parody. All right, President Trump is moving at lightning speed in his first weeks in office with executive orders, new policies, promises kept. It can be hard to keep up until now. Subscribe to the Trump Report. This daily email brings you highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Get all the details on the administration's top actions that day with in-depth analysis. You stay up to date on what President Trump is doing to make America great again. Subscribe to the Trump Report today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. That's SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. Get that up-to-the-minute email every single day with Salem. So it's just the constant looking for whoever is the new victim. Big thing. Only two other quick ones to mention. Another one of Musk's baby mamas, Grimes, publicly pleading with Elon Musk to respond to their child's medical crisis. This came out pretty much exactly when he was on stage wielding the chainsaw like a big penis to cut the bureaucracy. So this is I like to sometimes poke you guys because I made a big statement to start the week about how Musk getting all these women pregnant, not being present for the babies is not ideal. And it has nothing to do with whether or not he's doing a great job at Doge, because he is, and whether or not I'm not supportive of his efforts to cut the bureaucracy, because I am. I'm very much supportive. But I don't think he's a great dad. And I think that that's worth noting, that we can hope for our leaders to aspire to be both great bureaucrat cutters and great parents. So, and I don't need him to be a great dad to also be great at cutting the bureaucracy. That's fine with me. I can live with that. But since everyone's talking about it, just to point out that, yeah, I don't think it's ideal to blow up the entire nuclear family structure in general. Maybe it will work for him. I don't see that it is working because the baby mamas seem upset. Grimes is, she's a pop star of some sort, electronic music. Her music's mostly unlistenable to me. So if any of you understand Grimes, please explain her. I've given her a shot. I'm sure she's smart if Musk is into her. But I don't get it. Maybe you can explain it to me. But she's been very pro-Musk in the past. And even though they haven't been married, she's been very supportive of him, I think, in general, on a public level. So she's now going on X, Musk platform, to say that their baby's got a medical issue. Look, I care for the kids. I do. So I'm just trying to make big points. It doesn't mean that Musk isn't doing a great job with the government. But I like to point stuff out from time to time. Okay, let's see. Okay, and then the last one, Pope, week in the hospital with pneumonia, double pneumonia. Question is, will he resign? And we can't do worse than the current Pope. So I'm looking forward to, I would love to see him resign, because then I don't have to root for him to die. I don't want to root for him to die. It's not very Christian of me. It makes me a little bit of a hypocrite from rooting for the Pope to die, because it's a lifetime appointment. And I don't wish any personal ill on him as a living, breathing, physical human being. But I would like for him to not be Pope anymore. So resigning would be good. So he's sick. I don't want him to be sick. I'm sad about that. But I'd be very happy if we get a new Pope, because it can only get better. We tend to have great coverage of all issues Catholic at Breitbart by nature of us having a lot of Catholics on staff and a Rome Bureau. So we'll have that for you down the line. All right. I got tons and tons of email. I'm tempted to get to a lot of it. And we got a lot of comments on YouTube and Rumble. Thanks to all of you who go to YouTube and Rumble. And also, that's very good for me when you do that, leaving a comment, 5-star reviews, anything like that helps me, boost me in the algorithm. So I got some stuff from across the spectrum here. Okay, so first one is going to be an email. This is from Courtney Toure in Lexington, Kentucky. This Kentuckian is happy to see Mitch McConnell go. It's been long overdue. Kentucky is an interesting state with our Democrat governor. I'm quite certain he has his eyes set on a presidential run soon, and Republican-led legislature. But don't forget, we are also home to Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, and even Scott Jennings. Quite the variety, and outside of Lexington and Louisville, we really are a pretty red state. Sincerely, Courtney. Yeah, it really interesting. I've never been to Kentucky, and I'm interested. Yeah, I've never been. Seems like a cool state. I love Rand Paul. He's terrific. Thomas Massie's an original character. Scott Jennings is doing great. He's the other star of the new modern media landscape. It's just Jasmine Crockett and Scott Jennings. I was joking with Nolte today at the Fight Club about how, as great as Scott Jennings is, no one still is tuning into CNN. We just wait for the clips to go online of him dunking on people. Yeah, I'm glad to see Mitch go. It should be a good race because I think Daniel Cameron's a pretty safe guy, but is someone who I know has gotten along with McConnell, which will turn off some people probably in this audience. But I like Cameron. We'll have him on the show soon. And there'll be some other challengers who will be more hardcore. And if they win, great. Like, it could be fine. Fine with me. We're going to get someone better than Mitch. I got a feeling. But there is that possibility, given that they have a Democrat governor, that who knows who knows how that's going to go for sure. And that's why we had to stay organized and keep the momentum up now and stay in that wartime footing. That reminds me, we had a great clip of Bannon rallying the people at CPAC. And this is always fun to play because he's just got this great wartime spirit that I think really is the right message right now. Let me play this clip.
But they stole it. The system's so big, so corrupt, so powerful. Remember that? Back on our heels, right? You didn't quit. Just like in any military contest, we got a rally point. We dug the guide on in and said, you know what? Regroup, dust ourselves off, fix bayonets. We're charging again. That is why Kash Patel is the director of the FBI. That is why Bobby Kennedy is the head of the HHS. That is why Tulsi Gabbard is the they fear you in Riyadh. You know why they fear you in Beijing. You know why they fear you in Berlin and the city of London, because they know you're not stoppable.
It's just much better rhetorically than anything the Democrats are doing with their staccato language. It's really good. It's really good rhetoric from Bannon there. It's good. That's the right message. It really is. It's just we're staying on wartime footing. He's rallying everyone. He's getting everyone invested personally and taking celebration. That was the last message of my interview with Gorka yesterday, where his big takeaway was, let's celebrate now. We're having a great time. We're going to take out the bad guys and we're going to have a great time. But we can do both. This is the spirit of Andrew Breitbart. He had two modes. He said jocularity and righteous indignation. Jocularity and righteous indignation. So we're having a good time, but then we're also righteously indignant about the things that face us. Okay, next up, let's see. Amy Tholey this was YouTube. My phone ringtone is now, are you supportive of these onesies? Thank you. Classic YouTube. What is she talking about? What is that clip that she's referring? Is she referring to this one?
Are you supportive of these onesies?
Yeah, that's right. Look, we got to get this show. My first goal is to stay in the air. But my next goal, we want to be popular enough so I can have my own Hawaiian shirt line and my own onesie line. So this is it. We got to do this. So every time you're thinking about recommending the show to someone, just know that every recommendation is one person closer to us being able to have enough of a backbone of support for the Marlow cinematic universe that I can have my own onesie line so that we can all be supportive of these onesies.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
All right. Next up, let's see. Okay, Lobo 60. This is on Rumble. Just a thought on this 40 acres and a mule thing. This is in regards to Spike Lee at a 40 acres and a mule jacket on at the NBA game. Again, totally tone deaf that we're not doing handouts right now. He says, just a thought on this thing. If that is what it is, let's do it. The deal is that this would cancel out all other benefits from those who chose to accept it. So 40 acres is too much though. It's just too much now. So the mule, we give people mules. Yeah, we give handouts. If you can prove that you're a direct descendant of slaves, you'd be really interesting going through the process of seeing who would get reparations. Is so many of these race hucksters would not get reparations, and so many of the woke white people will have had slavery in their ancestry. The same way Joe Biden's family had slavery in its ancestry, and the media covered it up until he got elected president. It's the opening anecdote in Breaking Biden, which is a truly surreal thing, that he is a descendant of slaves or slavers. And not slaves, slavers. And the media just covered it up because they didn't want that to be in the public. So I think was it Ben Affleck who had slave owner ancestry? That was a big, really controversial. We got to get more of that. You got to get more of that going. So, but the 40 acres is too much. I mean, I probably have I probably got like 20% of an acre, and I don't know, my property's fine. It's like 40's a lot. 40's a lot. So that's why it doesn't work. I lived on, when I was in Arlington, I had about, I think, 4/10 of an acre, which that was an effort. That was a real drain on my budget because I didn't have time to, cut down trees all the time. Just keeping up with the less than half an acre was work. That was real work. So 40 acres, it takes a whole staff to do that. So I don't think that's happening, but I appreciate the outside the box thinking, Lobo. Blarum, also on Rumble. I find it shocking the misuse of government funds uncovered by the Doge Group, but what I really want to know is who got the money. For example, did Hamas really get $50 million in condoms, or was that money that was just laundered back to someone in the U.S.? No, Blarum, you missed this. It wasn't Gaza in the Middle East. It was Gaza in Mozambique, in Africa. So the condoms went to a different Gaza. That's how you know Doge is corrupt and Elon Musk is an idiot. That's how we know. Remember? Didn't you watch your CNN this week? Okay, so who got the $2 billion that went to the group associated with Stacey Abrams? I mentioned that in yesterday's show. For all the money. Yeah, that's the whole point of why Musk is doing is so offensive and so threatening to everyone. It is an audit. He's auditing what people are doing. And when you realize that the money is not going where it's supposed to be going, that's going to be where the real offense takes place. If we could ever figure out where it's going, not just that it's being allocated for absurd purposes like condoms in Gaza, that's bad enough. But what's really bad is if these funds are actually going towards people's pockets, people's ski vacations, oligarchs overseas. It's the people lining their pockets who already have enough money and are just corrupt grifters. People like the Bidens. That's what we want to figure out. And I don't know if we ever will, but that's why step one is making sure we cut it off, that we have really thorough audits going forward. But it would be nice to know who actually got the 50 million. Or that's why I said the 10 million for circumcisions is that you don't need 10 million for circumcisions. It's either it's not a expensive procedure. It's an incredibly cheap procedure. So there's nothing that requires $10 million for those. It's just a round number that was selected. All right, let's see. Going forward, John Hall emails, Alex, not a fan of the passive acceptance stance that you aren't going to get in the way of a big bill. That's weak sauce. So John has appointed himself the unofficial Marlow accountability agent. He's commenting on my position that I don't like big, beautiful bills, but I'm willing to tolerate Trump getting a big, beautiful bill. He's taken issue with me, and I understand it. Here he goes. Why isn't the stance of preference to get all of his priorities on one bill first? Not everything, but just the major list. Who cares about everything given all the fraud? He should get all his priorities in a slim bill first, or he allows the corrupt, fraudulent government to shut down until they get it done. And don't sign anything that's going to give back pay. That will make even more people leave the swamp. The Republicans need to turn the page and proudly, enthusiastically be the party of using the shutdown of the obvious corrupt government to make actual meaningful cuts and reforms that all the common sense people want and that they voted for. Screw the crying media. This is the time to get done. So it sounds like you're actually for a small, beautiful bill. So not a big, beautiful bill. But the point is, for me, is that I want as many separate bills as possible at a general level. The reason is because the bigger the bill, the more bloat gets in it. And I am admittedly hypocritically tolerant of Trump getting his initial agenda items through in one bill, because that is just easier. Because again, my political pragmatism and my committed conservative ideological conservatism on a philosophical level sometimes clash. And hopefully that's what makes this show interesting, because I'm not trying to always be dogmatic. I'm trying to provide a realistic approach to things. And I think realistically, we're going to lose out on a lot of crucial agenda items if we don't try to get as much through in one bill as we can. However, I know that principally long-term, this is very risky, because it does encourage Democrats to do the things like when they passed Obamacare, $1 trillion, we got to pass the bill so we know what's in it, the Nancy Pelosi style. And this is what I struggle with. I'm openly struggling with this on the show, because you guys have been with me for a while. If you have, you know that I complain about these omnibus bills where we cram in too much spending in the same bill. So always going to be an issue for me. It's always going to be something I got to grapple with when we're in power, because I want as much to get through. But just know that there's going to be more crap the bigger the bill. Every time, that's what happens. So is there a way to do the top 4 or 5 priorities in one slimmed down beautiful bill? I don't know. I've never seen it done that way before. It never happens. Theoretically, what we have is appropriation bills where there's, I always forget the exact number, but it's a dozen or so different bills should come up, and those should all, where like issues are voted on together, and it's like 12, 14 times, whatever it is. So I would like to get back to that, but it's not happening right now. So that's why I would be tolerant of one big, beautiful bill now, even though it offends my principles. And I understand John saying that it's a weak sauce stance. It kind of is. I admit it. I'm being a little hypocritical here, but look, I'm a pragmatist too. I'm not just a dogmatist. I will say a lot of negativity on my stance on turtlenecks, my anti-turtleneck stance. I do want you to email me, aloha@alexmarlow.com. So we can get a sense of the turtleneck situation here. I really am not sure that we're all vibing on the same page when it comes to the turtlenecks. I'm opposed. I don't think they've ever looked good. But then some of you ladies have been saying that you look good in turtlenecks, and I'm more tolerant with the women, I think. One person pointed out that the turtleneck can keep you warm. So I'm getting spoiled again because I'm in a climate where it's 60 degrees in the winter. So that changed. Maybe I would have been more tolerant when I was back east. But I find that the scarves are a pretty good look if you want to keep your neck warm. But it's I understand that there's a layering thing if you're doing a winter sport, but I'm still not convinced yet. You've got to convince me. You got to win me back over. especially with men. And one of you emailers who pointed out that the men wearing the turtleneck with the sport coat on the NFL broadcasts, it doesn't look good, and they keep doing it. So I'm not saying it's as bad as the Q-zip, but I'm saying I'm not a turtleneck guy, and you guys got to do some work to convince me. And we will continue to bring up these sartorial challenges of our time on the Alex Marlow Show when we're having a good time. Okay, happy Wine Shirt Friday to all of you. Thanks to producer Misty. If you missed my long form with Dr. Gorka, please catch up over the weekend. He is sensational. He's in rare form, and he's always in good form. A very good interview. I'm getting great feedback on that. And thanks to all of you for sharing the show with 10,000 friends and family members. Talk to you Monday.